You see, upper limbs are not to walk in human beings because human beings are bipedal. Therefore, their basic function is pinch. This pinch. This is called as forceps pinch. This is called as key pinch. And this is called as chucknut pinch. This is called as Akaucher's pinch. So pinch, the second thing is grasp. By pinch you are using the tip of fingers. By grasping you are using the whole of the fingers. So the second function is grasp. And the third function is hook. Hooking anything. You hook like this and you don't need the thumb and the hook. So pinch, grasp and hook are the functions of the hand. But the hand must be brought into the position that it can function. For example, you have to reach the glass before you can grasp it. And this prehensile function is performed by the scapula moving over the chest, by the shoulder movements, the glenoid movement between the glenoid and the head of the humerus, elbow movements, the radius and ulna moving over the lower end of humerus, by pronation and supination which occurs between the radius and ulna on the radioulnar joints, by flexion or extension of the wrist which is referred to as flexor carpi or extensor carpi. Carpus means the wrist. Then empty joint flexion, extension, adduction, abduction. Then PIP, DIP, flexion and extension. Then opponents of the thumb and flexion, extension, adduction, abduction of the thumb. So five movements of these thumb. So these are the movements and how they are produced. If you understand this, you would understand the names of many muscles that you encounter. So we draw the skull here and this vertebral column like this. Then we draw the scapula here and we connect it with the trapezius. Trapezius arises like this and is connected to the spine of scapula. So this trapezius upper fibers would elevate, lower fibers would depress, the medial fibers would retract the scapula. This is the trapezius. And on this axis, it will externally rotate the scapula held by the serratus anterior. Then we put the latissimus dorsi. It goes like this and gets attached to the bicipital groove of the humerus. So this is the latissimus dorsi. And then we place the humerus here and we place the deltoid muscle which is attached to the deltoid tuberosity here, which would basically abduct the shoulder. Then we have this rib and the scapula is like this with the glenoid cavity and the muscle that we can place here is going like this to attach to the ribs. So it would protract the scapula. Then any muscle which is attached like this, the rhomboids major minor, would retract the scapula. So scapula is the glenoid cavity would be externally rotated by the serratus anterior and by the trapezius, would be internally rotated by the pectoralis minor pulling down the coracoid process. It will be protracted by the serratus anterior, it will be retracted by rhomboideus major minor levator scapulae. So these movements of the scapula over the thorax have to be understood before we come to the basic diagram here. In this basic diagram, the trapezius would arise from the lateral posterior border, lateral 1/3 of clavicle, would go on the medial side of acromion, would go like this on the superior border of the spine of scapula, come down right up to the deltoid tubercle. The deltoid would arise from here, inferior border of the spine of scapula, lateral border of the acromion, and outer one, the anterior border of clavicle in the outer 1/3. The deltoid would come like this and get inserted into the deltoid tuberosity. On the medial border, you would find that there is rhomboideus levator scapulae, then rhomboideus minor, and rhomboideus major. The latissimus dorsi coming like this, winding round the lower border of the teres major, teres minor, would get inserted into the bicipital groove. And here is, you see the teres minor, the sit structure, the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, and teres minor. But there will be a teres major going anterior to the humerus and getting inserted on the medial lip of the bicipital groove. Lateral lip, you will have the insertion of the pectoralis major, and the latissimus dorsi would be attached to the floor, coming around the border of the teres major muscle. All right. So then you have the muscles that would move the head of the humerus. And you can see that the first 15 degree of movement would be produced by the supraspinatus, and after that up to 90 by the deltoid, and then the rest of the abduction would be external rotation of the scapula on this external rotation, and the glenoid would go up, and this external rotation would produce the rest of the 90 degree of abduction. Any muscle that is inserted behind the humerus would externally rotate, which is infraspinatus and teres minor, and any muscle in front, like subscapularis, would internally rotate. Subscapularis, latissimus dorsi, and pectoralis major. All these three muscles, lady between two majors, that means teres major, pectoralis major, latissimus dorsi, and subscapularis, would internally rotate the shoulder joint. Any muscle coming from the anterior side would flex it. For example, pectoralis major would flex, and the anterior fibers of the deltoid will flex. Any muscles coming from the posterior side would extend it. For example, posterior fibers of deltoid would extend the glenohumeral joint, and the latissimus dorsi will extend the glenohumeral joint. So, protraction, retraction, elevation, depression. Abduction or external rotation and internal rotation. These you are asked. I'll write them down for you. External rotation, internal rotation, protraction, retraction, elevation, depression. What are the muscles that produce these movements of the scapulothoracic joint? And then there is scapulothoracic. And what? Shoulder, abduction, adduction, flexion, extension, and external rotation and internal rotation. What are the muscles that produce these is the common question that you are asked in the examination. Now we come on to the elbow. You see this triceps, uh, see this triceps getting inserted onto the olecranon. From the lateral epicondyle arises the anconius, which gets inserted onto the posterior border of the ulna. From the posterior border arises a muscle which winds round the upper part of radius and gets attached to the supinator crest. It rotates the radius like this, causing supination. And this muscle is called as supinator. Then from the upper 1/4 of posterior border of ulna, from the posterior part of ulnar collateral ligament arises this flexor carpi ulnaris. This flexor carpi ulnaris, here you see olecranon is this side, medial epicondyle is that side, connecting is this ligament, which is the posterior part of ulnar collateral ligament, and this forms the canal of Cannon. This forms the canal of Cannon, and through this canal of Cannon, the ulnar nerve would pass. Ulnar nerve would pass under this canal to lie under the flexor carpi ulnaris and superficial to the flexor digitorum profundus. So when this nerve gets swollen, when this ulnar nerve gets swollen in the in leprosy, it gets paralyzed at the level of this canal, and you need to decompress the canal by taking off the posterior part of ulnar collateral ligament from the medial epicondyle. So in this canal of Cannon, the ulnar nerve can be compressed, and you have to take off the ligament from the medial part of epicondyle to decompress this nerve. Now these are the fibers of the supinator coming round the upper part of radius and getting attached to the supinator crest. Here would lie the radial artery on the supinator crest and the radial nerve. Radial nerve will be coming like this and lying here. Then pronator teres would originate from the medial epicondyle and the ulna, and this would form a gap through which the median nerve will pass, and under the ulnar head, posterior to the ulnar head, will pass the ulnar artery. This relation is very important when you are trying to release the pronator teres as part of the max page operation, which is done for chronic VIC. So now, what are the pronators of the, see, this is pronation, this is pronation. What are the pronators? Pronator quadratus and pronator teres. So here is pronator quadratus, and from the medial epicondyle to the middle of the radial head is the pronator, and this is the ulnar head of pronator teres, and this is the humeral head. All right. What are the supinators? The supinator rest attached to the supinator crest and the biceps are the supinator. Then what are the extensors of the elbow? Triceps would extend the elbow. What are the flexors of the elbow? The biceps and the brachialis getting inserted in the coronoid process would flex the elbow. What are the flexors of the wrist? There is a muscle which rises from the medial epicondyle, and comes and gets inserted into the first and the second metacarpal. This is called as flexor carpi radialis. And then a muscle arises from the medial epicondyle and the ulna, comes and gets inserted into the pisiform bone and gives a ligament which is the pissiohamate ligament. This is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Carpi means the joint, carpus of the wrist, and flexor is the movement. One is on the radial side, the other is on the ulnar side. Then what are the extensors of the wrist? Again, extensor carpi radi, but here the extensor carpi radialis is not single. It is longus and it is brevis. Longus and brevis, and of course the other is the extensor carpi ulnaris. Then what extends the empty joints? See, these are the empty joints. These are the empty joints. Okay. So what extends the empty joints? Like this. So extensor indicis, extensor digitorum, and extensor digiti minima. These are the extensors of the MP joint. Now what extends the PIP and DIP joint? Lumbricals extend the PIP-DIP joint. They extend the PIP and DIP joint, but they flex the MP joint. So lumbricals flex the MP joint and extend the PIP-DIP joint. So they are the musician muscle or the Tabelchi's muscles. Okay. Then which muscle flexes the PIP joint? Flexor digitorum superficialis. And which muscle flexes the DIP? Flexor digitorum profundus. So these muscles names you can remember by simply stating what their action is. Now we talk of the muscles on the dorsum of the wrist. So first one is extensor pollicis longus, abductor pollicis longus, and extensor pollicis longus. Yeah. The second is extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. So extensor pollicis longus would come like this, and abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis would come like this. You see, we'll make it here, and we choose white. So here is the radius, here is the carpus, two bones, Here is the finger and here is the thumb. So the extensor pollicis brevis and abductor pollicis longus. Abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis come like this. The extensor carpi radialis longus goes like this, and the brevis would go with it. So this is the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. And the extensor pollicis longus winds round the Lister's tubercle here and comes like this. So this is the formation of the snuff box. Medial boundaries extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. Distal boundary extensor pollicis longus, and lateral boundary abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. So this is the snuff box. As soon as you understand this anatomy, the other becomes very simple, because you have extensor indicis, extensor digitorum, extensor digiti minimi, and extensor carpi ulnaris. So this is the anatomy of the dorsum of the wrist. Now we draw the hand, section of the hand. So these are the four metacarpals: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 metacarpals. Okay. Connected by dorsal and palmar introsei. Dorsal introsei are abductors and palmar introsei are adductors. So you have, and this is the dorsal introsei, it will abduct the third finger. This is the palmar introsei, it will adduct the second finger. This movement will be adduction, this movement would be abduction. So you have 3 palmar introsei and 4 dorsal introsei. The thumb has its own adductor, so you don't need a palmar introsei here. So as soon as you place the palmar dorsal introsei, then you place the thenar muscles and the hypothenar muscles. And they are opponens, flexor, abductor. Now these would be called as pollicis, and these would be called as opponens, flexor, abductor, digiti minimi. Alright. Then you place the palmar aponeurosis, the intermediate septum, the flexor pollicis longus, the 4 tendons of the flexor digitorum superficialis, and the 4 tendons of the flexor digitorum profundus. Then you place the abductor pollicis brevis. So this is abductor pollicis longus. Abductor pollicis brevis and longus. Then extensor in carpi radialis longus. Extensor carpi radialis longus. Extensor carpi radialis brevis. Then extensor indicis and the 4 tendons of the extensor digitorum and extensor digiti minimi. Extensor indicis and extensor digiti minimi. So these are the dorsal muscles. Now we'll place a very important muscle which you must remember, and they are the lumbricus. Lumbricus will originate and come and get attached to the extensor expansion. So they will flex the MP joint. They are coming from the flexor tendon, coming like this and getting attached to the extensor expansion. So they'll flex the MP joint, and through the extensor expansion they will extend the PIP and DIP joint. For example, if we want to show you, this is the metacarpal head, this is the first phalanx, this is the second, and this is the third. The flexor digitorum profundus tendon is coming like this. The flexor digitorum superficialis is splitting into two and getting attached to the intermediate phalanx. These muscles, the extensor pollicis longus, extensor digitorum is coming like this, getting converted into a extensor expansion, this, which is inserted on this joint, and then like this into the distal joint. Now these lumbricals would come like this and get attached to the extensor expansion. Through the extensor expansion, they will stretch the PIP and the DIP joints, but since they are passing anterior to the axis of the MP joint, they will flex the MP joint. So they will flex the MP and extend the PIP and DIP. If they are paralyzed, this MP joint will become extended. MP joint will become extended, and the PIP DIP will become flexed. Now this is called as claw head. Now we tell you the final thing about the forearm muscles. The if this is the radius and this is the ulna, here you have the interosseous membrane. The deepest muscles, this is the radius, this is the ulna, is flexor pollicis longus and flexor digitorum profundus. Flexor pollicis longus. Then intermediate is FDS. And then from this side you have the pronator teres, the flexor carpi radialis, the palmaris longus, and flexor carpi ulnaris. So these are the muscles most superficial, intermediate, and deepest in the flexor compartment of the forearm. This is what you have shown: flexor pollicis longus, flexor digitorum profundus, and pronator quadratus. Pronator quadratus is here, are the deepest. Then you have the pronator teres like this, with the ulnar and the humeral leg. Then you have the flexor carpi radialis attaching these two from the medial epicondyle. Then you have the palmaris longus. Then you have the flexor carpi ulnaris. And between the superficial and the deep layers, you have a flexor digitorum superficialis, which originates from the medial epicondyle, which has also got ulnar head, and which also originates from the supinator crest. So this muscle is flexor digitorum superficialis. Humerus, ulna, and radius. Supposing you are asked which muscles originate from the humerus only, you are going to say palmaris longus, flexor carpi radialis. Which muscles from the humerus and ulna? Pronator teres and flexor carpi ulnaris. Which from the humerus, ulna, and radius? Flexor digitorum superficialis. Which from radius and interosseous membrane? Flexor pollicis longus. Which from ulna and interosseous membrane? Flexor digitorum profundus. Which muscle originates from the ulna and goes to the radius? Pronator quadratus. So this helps you answer the origin insertion of nearly all muscles that are there in the upper extremity, especially below the elbow. Now the nerve supply is that median nerve supplies all the muscles of the forearm except the third and fourth flexor digitorum profundus and flexor carpi ulnaris, which are supplied by the ulnar nerve. All extensors, including the supinator, are supplied by the radial nerve. Finally, there is another muscle which arises from the lateral side of this supracondylar ridge, comes and gets attached to the radial styloid, which is called as brachioradialis. This revises the muscles of the upper extremity for you.